I used to believe that if you documented something clearly enough, someone would have to respond.
That was the logic I learned at the Naval Academy. Intelligence informs policy. Good analysis creates good decisions. The chain works.
My name is Naomi Kessler. Between January 2013 and August 2016, I was a geospatial intelligence analyst at the Naval Analysis Center in Pearl Harbor. My job was to track Chinese naval activity in the South China Sea using commercial satellite imagery.
I'm going to tell you exactly what I tracked, because I think you should know how precisely we saw what was happening, and how precisely we chose not to stop it.
In January 2013,
I received my first tasking on Fiery Cross Reef. It's part of the Spratly Archipelago, a scattered collection of rocks, shoals, and shoal and coral formations, roughly equidistant between the Philippines, Vietnam, and mainland China. Fiery Cross was barely above water at high tide, an exposed coral platform, maybe 2 acres.
On January 19, 2013, a Chinese dredging vessel arrived and began pumping sand onto the reef.
I documented it, I filed my report, I noted the vessel type, the dredging pattern, the rate of reclamation. Standard monitoring, the kind of thing that happens in disputed waters. Nations posture. They build a structure, abandon it, come back. The reef was still underwater half the day. By March 2014, Fiery Cross Reef was 550 acres.
Not 2 acres, 550.
That's when I filed my first alert, because in April 2014 I started seeing concrete, not temporary structures, permanent foundations, and the dimensions were wrong for a weather station or a Coast Guard outpost.
The footprint matched a runway, a long one. I estimated 10,000 feet, capable of hosting fighter aircraft and long-range maritime patrol planes. I put that in my report. I sent it to US Pacific Command. I noted that if construction continued at current rate, the runway would be operational by late 2015. In June 2014, I identified similar construction at Subi Reef and Mischief Reef, 2 more reclamation sites, 2 more runway footprints. By December 2014, I was tracking 7 simultaneous sites across the Spratlys. Dredging, pouring, paving, all of them moving faster than my initial projections. I filed monthly reports, every one of them detailed, every one of them on time. I included imagery, measurements, timelines, comparative analysis. I flagged the strategic implications. These weren't civilian installations. They were military bases being built on features that didn't legally qualify as islands. Features that couldn't support sovereignty claims under international law.
I assumed someone was reading them. I assumed decisions were being made. By August 2015, Fiery Cross Reef had a radar installation, a deep water port, and fuel storage capable of supporting sustained naval operations. The runway was 70% complete. I updated my estimates. All 3 major airstrips would be finished by mid-2016.
In February 2016, I briefed Pacific Command directly. I showed them imagery of hardened aircraft shelters and surface-to-air missile emplacements. I walked them through the timeline. I showed them how quickly the bases had become irreversible. At the end of the briefing, I made a recommendation. I said the United States should conduct immediate freedom of navigation operations within 12 nautical miles of the installations. I said we should impose a diplomat cost while the construction was still incomplete. I said waiting would mean accepting a permanent shift in the balance of power in the South China Sea. My recommendation was noted.
No operational order followed.
In July 2016, the Permanent Court of Arbitration at The Hague ruled that China's claims in the South China Sea had no legal basis. The tribunal found that the artificial islands could not generate territorial waters. It was a clean, unambiguous ruling.
China ignored it. The bases remained, the runways were operational, fighter squadrons rotated through, anti-ship missile batteries went active.
By the time the tribunal ruled, there was nothing left to rule on. The facts on the water had already been established.
In November 2016, 4 months after the ruling, I was asked to brief a congressional delegation visiting Pearl Harbor. I presented the timeline I just described to you. I showed them the imagery, the dredging, the pouring, the aircraft shelters.
A senator asked me why no action had been taken. I told him I didn't know. He asked if my reports had been unclear. I said no. He asked if I had recommended a response. I said yes. He asked what happened to the recommendation. I said it was noted. He thanked me for my service. After the briefing, a 2-star admiral I had never met pulled me aside in the hallway. He told me the reports had been excellent. He said the decision not to act had been made at a level far above Pacific Command.
He said it was a trade calculation.
He said the White House had decided that confronting China over the reefs would jeopardize cooperation on
Iranian sanctions and North Korean containment. He said the South China Sea was less important than keeping Beijing at the negotiating table on other issues.
He said my work had been used to monitor the situation, not to stop it. He said monitoring was the mission. I realized then that my reports had never been intelligence assessments.
They had been documentation of a concession.
I had spent 3.5 years tracking the construction of 7 military bases in some of the most contested waters on Earth. I had filed 18 months of detailed, precise, actionable analysis. I had recommended responses. I had done my job. And the entire time, the decision had already been made. Not to stop it, to let it happen, and to make sure someone was watching when it did. I kept working for another 1.5 years. I filed reports. I briefed officers. I updated the imagery, but I understood the work differently now. I wasn't there to prevent anything. I was there to make sure we had a record. I left the Navy in March 2018. I work now as a contractor for a private geospatial intelligence firm. We sell satellite analysis to hedge funds, energy companies, shipping insurers. I track the same reefs, the same bases.
But now the clients pay me to assess how the bases affect shipping routes, insurance premiums, offshore drilling risk. I tell them which sea lanes are compromised. I tell them how much it will cost to reroute. I tell them which energy blocks are no longer viable because a Chinese fighter squadron can reach them in 14 minutes.
I am very good at it. I make more money than I ever did in uniform. I have not filed a report to the US government since I left. A few months ago, someone asked me if I would go back, if I missed the work, if I still believed in it. I said I still believed intelligence should inform policy. I said documenting what happens matters, precision matters. But I wasn't filing reports to change policy. I was filing reports so someone could say they had been informed. That is a different job. I didn't know that then. The bases are still there, they're expanding. Fiery Cross Reef now has a full air defence network. The runways have been resurfaced twice. Permanent barracks, desalination plants, underground fuel storage. I can see all of it from the satellite feeds I pull for my clients. The imagery is better now than it was in 2013. Higher resolution, more frequent passes. We see everything. Last month, one of my clients asked me to assess construction activity at Scarborough Shoal. It's a different reef system, 100 miles west of the Spratlys. The Chinese have been dredging there since January.
I pulled the most recent imagery. I measured the reclamation rate. I identified the concrete pores. I estimated the runway dimensions. I wrote the report in 4 hours.
I billed them $11,000. I didn't recommend they do anything about it. That's not my job anymore. The client was a maritime insurance consortium, 12 European underwriters trying to assess risk corridors in the South China Sea. They wanted to know if the new base would affect shipping lanes, if it would change response times for search and rescue, if premiums needed adjustment. I told them the runway would be operational by August. I told them it would host rotational deployments of J-11 fighters and likely an early warning radar installation. I told them the effective interdiction radius would extend 70 nautical miles in all directions. I attached the imagery, I attached the measurements, I attached my assessment confidence levels.
They thanked me for the thorough work.
No one asked what it meant. No one asked what should be done. In 2013, I believed someone was asking those questions. I believed that when I sent my reports up the chain, when I documented the dredging at Johnson South Reef, when I tracked the construction vessels, when I measured the concrete curing, I believed someone 3 levels above me was reading it and thinking about what it meant. I believed they were asking, what does this change? What do we do? What happens next? I wrote a report in July 2013, classified secret, no fun, distribution list of 47 people. It documented the completion of the first artificial island. It included before and after imagery. It included construction timelines. It included a section on implications for freedom of navigation, and a section on strategic infrastructure development, and a section on escalation potential.
I spent 6 days writing it. I was very proud of it.
3 weeks later, I was in a briefing room in Hawaii, PACOM headquarters. I was there to present the findings to a working group on maritime domain awareness.
14 people in the room, mostly Navy, 2 from State, 1 from the National Security Council.
I had 20 minutes. I showed them the imagery. I walked them through the construction sequence. I explained the timeline. I explained what the Chinese could build next. I explained what it would enable. I was prepared for questions about our response options. I was prepared to be asked what we should recommend.
The first question was about sourcing confidence. The second question was about whether we had corroborating human.
The third question was whether I could confirm the concrete type. The man from the National Security Council asked if I could have the report reformatted with the imagery in the appendix instead of inline.
Then they thanked me for my work.
I flew back to Virginia the next day. A month later, the Chinese started dredging at Waterline Reef. I filed another report. A month after that, they started at Fiery Cross. Another report. In December, someone from the National Security Council sent an email to my supervisor asking if we could provide monthly updates on the island construction. Standardized format, same structure every month, just update the measurements and the imagery.
They wanted to track progress.
Not stop it.
Track it.
I started writing the monthly reports in January 2014. I wrote one every month for 18 months.
18 reports. Same distribution list, same format, updated imagery, updated measurements, updated runway lengths and radar installations and aircraft deployments.
Every month the islands got bigger. Every month I documented it. In March 2015, I was in another briefing room, different building, same kind of people. The man from State, different man, same department, asked me if I thought the construction would stop. I said no. I said they had committed too much. I said the infrastructure was too developed. I said they were installing permanent facilities.
He nodded. He said, but they might slow down if they face international pressure.
I said, they're not facing international pressure. He said, we're working on that. I said, they poured the foundations for 2 hangars at Fiery Cross last week. The concrete is already curing. He said, these things take time. I stopped talking. I finished the briefing. I answered questions about sourcing and imagery resolution and construction timelines. No one asked what we should do. No one asked what would happen if we didn't do anything. I flew back to Virginia. I wrote the next monthly report. I left the government in June 2015. My supervisor asked why. She said I was doing important work. She said the reports were valuable. She said people were reading them. I said I wanted to try the private sector. She said she understood. I don't think she did.
The truth is, I couldn't write another report documenting something no one would act on.
The truth is, I couldn't sit in another briefing room and answer questions about concrete types while watching people decide that doing nothing was easier than doing something. The truth is, I realised my job wasn't intelligence analysis. My job was liability management.
If something went wrong, if there was a confrontation, if there was an incident, if there was a crisis, someone could pull out my reports and say, we knew, we were informed, we were tracking it.
My reports were documentation that they had been told. Not that they had acted.
Just that they had been told.
I now do the same work for private clients. The difference is they don't pretend it's something else.
They don't tell me I'm informing policy. They don't tell me I'm supporting decision makers. They don't tell me the work matters for national security.
They tell me they need to assess risk. They tell me they need to know what's happening so they can price it correctly. They tell me they're not going to change anything, they just need to know what to charge. It's the same work, but it's honest.
Last week, I pulled imagery of Scarborough Shoal. The runway is ahead of schedule. They've already poured the base layer. The radar installation is complete. There are 6 permanent structures and what looks like a fuel depot.
I measured everything. I updated my assessment. I sent it to the client.
They asked if I thought this would affect the shipping corridors they insure.
I said yes. They asked by how much. I gave them a percentage. They thanked me. Then they adjusted their premium. I think about the briefing room sometimes.
I think about all those people, smart people, people who understood what was happening, people who read my reports.
I think about what they decided. They decided it was complicated.
They decided there were equities to balance. They decided there were risks to acting. They decided it was better to wait.
They decided to commission another report.
And now there are 7 artificial islands.
Military bases in the middle of the South China Sea. Runways and hangars and missile batteries and 10,000 miles of new territorial claims. All of it documented. All of it reported. All of it watched. None of it stopped. Someone asked me once if I felt complicit. I said I was just doing my job. I said I was providing accurate intelligence. I said what happened after that wasn't my responsibility. I think about that answer sometimes. I think about what it means to do your job well when your job is to document things nobody will stop. I think about precision in service of inaction. I'm very good at my job. I've always been very good at my job. That's what I tell myself.